Okay, welcome to another Stampscapes on Scraps video. Right here, I'm stamping on a piece of the silver foil, one of my favorite mediums or surfaces that I've been using over the past couple years, using a lot of mirror cards, but also I like the look of it with certain media applied right over the top. Right here, I'm stamping these spruce large trees in a StazOn ink. Then I'm following up with the Brilliance White with these kind of more thinner trees here in the pine tree. This white stands out quite a bit over that silver foil. There's quite a lot of contrast in here. And all of these trees are all pointing to that central vanishing point there, that little dot that you can see right on the paper. And you have to do that for that kind of line on your back and looking up at the sky type of perspective. Okay, now going back into this with the Starlight Silver Brilliance and the Leafless Pines Medium stamp. Okay, and again, pointing all of these trees right towards that dot. And there you have that kind of circle of trees pointing up at the sky. Going in with the white pigment ink, or actually the white bleed-proof white paint here to splatter paint some white stars into the scene, stamping out the word stamp piece in the Starlight Silver, and then going into the scene and adding some larger dots, stars I guess we can say, with the extra fine acrylic paint pen. And then, to add a little bit of extra bling into this scene, I'm adding these clear crystals. And I'm going to frame this off. I'm not sure how I'm going to format my card, but I don't know. This combination of media I thought would make a really great ornament or gift tags or something like that, having something nice and reflective. And then, with these crystals, we have something reflective on top of an already reflective, attention-getting surface in the silver foil. Silver foil is very affordable, 60 sheets, 8.5 by 11 for about $18 or so. Sometimes you see these sheets going at $1 a piece, so you can get the link for this, all these materials right underneath the videos. Just click Show More. Okay, I found another piece of scrap here in the form of this, I don't know what it is, wine or plum, kind of like a Star Dream iridescent paper. And here I am, adding in some white Brilliance ink on the surface to give it kind of a cloudy look. Going to heat set it a little bit so I can stamp right over the top of it right away. You can stamp into wet ink too, but I just think you can get a little bit better of an impression drying out that white a little bit, just so it doesn't pull some of that white off. Adding a little bit more of a lighting element to the top of that rooftop there with some additional white ink. Blocking off some of the bottom portion for the ledge stamp stamped right there to give this little tiny scene a nice foreground. And I'm stamping this foreground imagery with the black Brilliance pigment ink. The lakeside cabin in the background was stamped in the StazOn. StazOn over the top of that white ink kind of looks more gray, so having this thicker application of the pigment ink here, I felt gave it more depth, and that was something I wasn't really thinking of. Okay, adding some lighting into that cabin with the extra fine paint pen again. And then adding in some little bit of highlighting down in that ledge stamp, and then on the interior of the trees. Okay, now after adding this in, I thought, that white ink, you know, that highlighting on the trees and everything kind of stands out a little bit. So I'm going to add in a light source in the form of that moon, so that the moon is casting the light onto those trees, and kind of that white ink makes more sense. Adding a little bit of cloudy haze around the moon with the white ink, and then kind of framing off the four corners with a little bit of that black pigment ink again, And you have a nice little, I thought, fairly illusionistic deep space on that tiny little card. Okay, now this is just a piece of cheap blue. It's practically construction paper. It's not a cardstock, you know, that's nice and thick and smooth. It was just a piece of cheap blue paper. And I thought I would try to do a scene on this one. Again, it's a dark surface, so we're going to block off with some white ink, stamping onto the scene. And I did this one in the black brilliance, just so that it would stand out more against that background, having this thicker style of ink. You can use any, it doesn't have to be the brilliance ink or the brilliance white ink on this type of surface because it's very, very porous, and any type of pigment ink should dry just fine on this type of surface. Okay, now after, I did add in that background of clouds, but I'm going in here now, and after getting my bearings and seeing where the image goes, I'm making all of the objects and areas a little bit more illuminated, but in a very targeted way. When we're adding in those clouds in the background, we don't know where things are going to go, and it's a little bit looser. But now I'm adding this white pigment ink on, I don't know, various snowy slopes on the road, adding some to the sky with a little bit of a wispy type of look, just to give a little bit more texturing and movement into the scene. And then following up with a little bit of black pigment ink to add in a little bit of shading, to give a little bit more, I guess, contrast to the sky, and shading into the scene. A little bit more variation, being that we're starting off with a dark blue. Okay, now, trees in this dark blue surface I didn't think would stand out enough, so I am stamping my imagery in white. Kind of makes sense in this type of snowy scenario to stamp it in white. Have these snow-covered trees, doing a little bit of minimal masking here, stamping my trees behind the covered bridge, and going with some foreground trees here. I wasn't quite sure what color to do the foreground trees in. As you'll find, I wasn't really happy with these white trees. I just thought it was looking a little bit redundant with the white trees in the background, and they didn't stand out so much, adding in a moon again. You'll see what I do to remedy this whole scene. It's looking a little bit cluttered and busy with all the white trees in the background and foreground. It's the same texture going over everything. It's pretty much stamped out in the same coloring, going in with the white paint pen. The white paint pen is going to be more opaque than impressions made with white pigment ink onto the surface, but here's what I do. I come back in with a thicker, larger spruce tree, large in the black ink, and that anchored the scene off on the bottom with larger dark imagery, and it's not so completely busy. And then by doing those black trees down below like that, it seemed to open up the possibility for me to go with some black ink down below and in the upper right and left hand corners to create a nice vignette, and that really contains the scene so much easier. Going in with some white pigment ink to add a little bit of haze and variation to my impressions. And then going in and strengthening my contrasts a little bit more with some the 0.7mm extra fine acrylic paint pen here. If you have a white gel pen, you can use that. I didn't add in any kind of little silver embellishments, but I imagine you can do some kind of interesting touches with silver in here too, maybe a little bit more of a subtle type of mark, but the white looks really good in here. And there you have the scenes here, just using some kind of unconventional sizes from what I usually use, and going into my scrap pile and making use of some of these pieces that I otherwise have just tossed out. Thanks so much for watching.